Shalom. Welcome to my channel, brothers and sisters. So, wanted to cover today. I'm going to, just get right to it. The topic today is going to be, who is Jesus? Okay, who is this character that they have given us in the New Testament that they say is the Savior? A couple of things to think about, and I'm going to cover that and help to reveal the truth of the matter, because remember, we are reading a translation, especially the Greek Testament, which is their New Testament. In the original Testament, there's no mention of a Jesus character, regardless of what they say. It is not true. Okay, it does mention a Mashiach. Okay, an anointed one, and also the term Mashiach was also used as Aramaic for anointed one, that they say in English is Messiah for kings. Okay, remember, King David, the Most High did mention would have an everlasting, he would reign. He would have an everlasting reign, and it did mention that in the original Testament, but it doesn't mention anything about a Jesus character. So a couple of things you need to think about. Let's talk about it first of all. They say that Jesus is a Savior. Well, let's think about, again, we have to look to the history of our people. If you are Israelite, okay, descendant of the original branch, Yisrael, okay, think about the history of our people. In the original Testament, not what they call the Old Testament, there's no such thing as the Old Testament, it is the Testament, the original Testament. Did any of our people pray to Jesus, or did they pray to the Creator, our Father in heaven, the Most High? They prayed to the Most High, didn't they? Think about the story of Moses. Moses had a direct connection with the Most High, correct? Did he have a mediator, speaking to him, and then to the Most High on, or did the Most High speak to him through a mediator on his behalf? No. Now, he had messengers that led us through to help us, his angels he sent to lead us through the desert, and he sent his messengers, known as his angels, to help us from time to time. But when he spoke to us, there was a direct connection. Even in the story of Abraham, Abraham spoke directly to the Most High. Do you read in the story of Abraham when the Most High told Abraham that from him came, from his seed would come a people as numerous as the stars? Was there a mediator between the two when the Most High spoke to Abraham? No. What about the prophets? When when you think about it, the Most High spoke directly to his people. There wasn't, where was Jesus in the Old Testament? Jesus was not a mediator. So all of a sudden, someone tells, our people that in this Greek Testament known as the New Testament, which is not the testament of our people, but the testament of people who enslaved our ancestors and brought them here against their will, and then came up with this Greek Testament, told our ancestors that, hey, our people that, hey, by the way, here's this character, Jesus, that they pretty much forced conversion on us and forced our people to follow. Okay, and say that he's your Savior. And by the way, he don't look nothing like us. He happens to look like them. And by the way, he is of Nephilim origin. Okay, so a couple of things you need to think about. And if you understand what I'm saying, in Nephilim origin, Jesus is, if you understand the story, right, is he not of, and this is what they say, of divine origin? They say is of spirit son, and he is also of human origin by the way of, they say, Mary. Okay, so that means that he would be part human and part spirit. So if he is part human and part spirit, then who is part human and part spirit? If you know the story in the book of Genesis, okay, Gene Isis, which is the breakdown of those two words, Genesis, and if you want to look up what Isis means, that's a story for another day. It'll help you understand what the book of Genesis is all about and why they named the book Genesis, Gene Isis, because those are the words that Genesis forms. Okay, and what is the root of the word? Genes. Okay, because it is about genetic corruption. A fair amount of the book in the beginning talks about how humankind became genetically corrupt because of a fallen angel who talked his brothers, 200 brothers, into rebelling okay, and also corrupting the human race. And that is also mentioned in the book of Enoch. And I talked about that in my videos, the DNA of that Nephilim. You can go check it out in some of my previous videos to help you understand all of this. Now, if the Most High, if you understand the story of the 200 fallen angels, okay, that descended, down here, came to that mountain and decided that they were going to, take human females and mate with them. If you understand the punishment that occurred, okay, from the Most High, that went, that was, administered to them, you will understand that the Most High he opposed and despised the mixing of unlike seed. It was forbidden among his children in heaven, his sons in heaven, and his children on earth. And this is why in even the laws of our people, the instructions our Father gave us, known as the instructions and requirements, we could not mix fabric. Okay, if you read in the book of the law, the book of the Leviticus and Exodus, we couldn't mix fabrics. We couldn't mix two different seeds, diverse seeds, even in our fields, okay, because it reminded, it was to remind us that we were not supposed to mix with the nations, and we were only allowed to marry people amongst ourselves, our own people, of our own tribe, of Yisrael. And because of the genetic corruption that occurred, okay, that was the reason that the Most High gave us these instructions. So you have to understand how he opposed the mixing of two diverse seed. It was forbidden. It was forbidden in the ancient world, and it is still part of the laws of today. Now, do these people want you to know that? No, it's because they're descendants of these fallen angels, okay, that have got their hands on our translations and changed them. And they gave you this Jesus character who is a spirit son, okay, a Nephilim, that they have created, and who Jesus really is may surprise you, but it is not who they claim as the Savior, okay? Because if you look at the history of our people, there was no Jesus when our people consulted the Most High. Our ancestors consulted the Most High directly when our ancestors were walking upright. Does that make sense to you? So look at the history. I always say history is very important. Our people were told that our history doesn't matter, and this is why our people don't think about these things. But you must understand the original testament is really important. It is not about what they call their Greek false testament. It is about the original testament of our people, okay? Because remember, even in the first century, when our people were teaching our people and trying to wake us up from the people around us, when their Nephilim, offspring, the Edomites, had Rome and the Greco-Romans had conquered, they were occupying our land and our people were rebelling, they were teaching our people, the Israelites that were, trying to push these people off our land, push them off the land and get rid of them. They were teaching from the original testament, not the New Testament. Remember that. So, at any rate, let's talk about this term, the Son of Man. So there's two distinct, how should I say, characters that are mentioned in this Greek Testament that they call the New Testament. Okay? That is really a false testament because they have added so much to the writings, of our people. And this is why they have done all this, okay, so they could, deceive, essentially the world. But there are two sons. There is a son of man, okay, son of Adam, human, okay, who was more than likely an Israelite, okay, who they at some point persecuted and killed, okay, and we don't know what his name was. He may have been a descendant of David. Remember, it's not, it wouldn't be unfeasible to think that this, David had descendants, because remember, he had several children. Okay, so he may have been descendant of King David. Because remember, what's interesting is in this Greek Testament, they did also call him sometimes the son of David. So there was an Israelite there, a son of human, kind, and or a son of Adam, and there was also a spirit son who they called Jesus. Okay, so how do we know all of this? well, let's take a look. If you look at this Matthew verse, Matthew chapter 17, verse 22, the Son of Man, this term is a very curious term, and it's been mentioned throughout their Greek Testament, okay, that they call the New Testament. So what that term always I found curious, because sometimes when you read about Jesus, they'll say the Son of God, and then they'll say the Son of Man. So you got to wonder yourself, well, wait a minute, well, how can he be the Son of God, you know, if he is born of this divine origin and be a son of man, which would be the son of a human? But we know he wasn't the son of a human, right? But I used to think, when I would read it 10 years ago, I thought, okay, well, maybe that means he was son of human, but how can that be when he was the son of God? So it never made sense to me. And it's because of the confusion that they caused in their, again, removing sections and then adding, you know, additional sections, you know, and creating this, you know, false testament, which was obviously meant to cause confusion. But so let's break this down and help you understand all this. So if you look at the several translations of that verse, okay, it says, now here it gets very interesting. Most of the translations it says, and while, let's say, for example, the KJV version, while abode in Galilee, Jesus said unto them, the Son of Man shall be betrayed into the hands of men. And most of it says the Son of Man, right? In most of these translations. However, if you look at there are other translations that say, like, for example, the Orthodox Jewish translation, which is taken more from the Hebrew translation, it says they were gathered together in Galilee, Rebbe, which they called Rabbi, they say is Rabbi Melech HaMashiach. Again, that's Hebrew. They, you know, say Hebrew for Messiah, where actually in Aramaic it's Mashiach for Messiah, which means anointed one. They said to him, the Ben Adam, Ha-Adam, okay, and they put in parentheses again, Mashiach, that means Messiah in Hebrew, is about to be handed over, even betrayed into the hands of Benai Adam. Okay, so the Ben Adam, Ben in Hebrew, in their modern Hebrew, okay, which isn't the same as the original language of our people, but this is, you know, their Hebrew, again, because they corrupted even our language. But Ben, they're saying in their Hebrew, modern Hebrew, means sons, and Ahadam means Adam. Okay, so the son of Adam is what this means from their modern Hebrew translation. Is about to be handed over and betrayed into the hands of, and Benai would just mean plural, sons of Adam. So again, that's what the son, you have to understand, what they did was they took the original translation had the son of Adam, okay, and then they replaced it with the son of man. Now, why did they do all the translations that said son of Adam, they replaced with the son of man? It's very curious, right? And if you don't think that that's what happened, let's look at Ezekiel, where this term is also used. If you look at Ezekiel, I'm going to say 32, chapter 32, maybe verse 2. Let's take a look here. Okay, so in Ezekiel chapter 33, verse 2, the Son of Man also, I think is mentioned also in the book of Daniel, but we're going to use Ezekiel for this particular example. It says, Son of Man, speak to the sons of your people, okay, and say to them, if I bring a sword upon a land, and the people of the land take one man from among them, and make him their watchman. So it says Son of Man. So let's look at that translation, breakdown of that translation, some of the other translations. So again, it says again, Son of Man in most of the translations. This one says human one, okay, in this translation. Now, if you look at the common, CJB is the common Jewish Bible, it says human being. Interesting, right? But again, most of the translations say Son of Man. Now, if we go down to some of them do say human being. However, if you go down to the Orthodox, again, Jewish Bible, okay, which is taken from the Hebrew, it says Ben Adam, okay, son of Adam. So very interesting. So that helps you to understand that they did replace every aspect of the words when it spoke of, referred to human beings as the son of Adam. Because remember, Adam was the first human being that the Most High made on this planet. they took out Adam. There was a reason why they did that and replaced it with Son of Man. So that's curious, but I want you to understand what they did, okay? That they did do that translation, and that's what it really means. It does mean human being. So if it means human being, how can Jesus be the Son of God if the son of Adam, okay, who they translated deliberately, says Son of Man? If that means human being, then how can Jesus be the Son of God when he was also referred to as a human being? So that helps you understand there are two distinct sons in their translation. There is a human being who is the son of Adam that is mentioned, that they replaced with the Son of Man, and then there is this Jesus character that they've given you that they call the Son of God, okay, and they've confused with this other term, Son of Man, that they swapped out Adam and replaced it with man. But two different characters. There is a spirit son and then a human being, okay, and then they have a spirit son as essentially a Nephilim, okay, half spirit and half human, that they have replaced and they call Jesus, that looks like, by the way, them. Now you got to wonder about that, right? So now how do you know all this? Now let's find out who Jesus really is, okay, because we know a couple of things I want you to understand. There is no Jesus in the ancient, we know it's not in the ancient writings of our people known as the Original Testament. There's no Jesus mentioned. There's not even a J in the Hebrew or Aramaic alphabet, and I'm going to show that to you if you haven't already checked yourself. I'm sure you've heard it before. So if there's no J, then obviously his name wasn't Jesus. Then who is Jesus? So let's find out. So if we go to Matthew, let's look at one of the parables. Matthew chapter 13 verse 33, which discusses the parable of the leaven. Okay, so we look at that particular verse. It says, he spoke another parable to them. The kingdom of heaven is like leaven, which a woman took and hid in 3 pecks of flour until it was all leavened. Okay, so let's take a look at that. Now, if you don't understand what I'm saying, I'm going to give you another translation of that because I think this is really important. I want to show you something. So I'm giving you another translation from what they call the NAB version. And it talks about, instead of calling it the parable of leaven, it calls it the parable of yeast. Okay, so it says, he spoke to them in another parable, the kingdom of heaven is like yeast that a woman took and mixed with 3 measures of wheat flour until the whole batch was leavened. So if you look at the kingdom of heaven is like yeast, and it says A, that footnote A, what does it say here? It says yeast or leaven is, in New Testament usage, a symbol of corruption. Okay, so yeast is used in the New Testament usage, a symbol of corruption. What kind of symbol of corruption are they talking about? Now, first time, now if you were in a Christian, from a Christian church, and a Christian minister would probably say, oh, corruption meaning sin. Well, that's not quite correct, because if you think about it, he spoke to them in another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like yeast. Kingdom, he's referring to the kingdom of heaven here, is comparing it to yeast that a woman took and mixed with 3 measures of flour until the whole batch was leavened. So it is not talking about sin. It's talking about the kingdom of heaven, referring to there was some sort of corruption that occurred, and the kingdom of heaven is being used as a metaphor, but genetic corruption is what it's referring to. And how do you know all this? If you look at the book of Genesis, now this is going to be a little bit way over your head, but if you look at the book of Genesis, even the way they termed the book of Genesis, okay, Genesis, let's break those 2 words down. Gene is the root word of Genesis. Gene for genetic, right? Gene, and then Isis, because they like to do word plays and switch letters around. Gene, Isis, Gene, Isis, Gene, Isis. So if you understand, gene is genetic, right? And then Isis, kind of same difference. If you know what Isis means, then you'll understand why they named the book Genesis. Okay? Even there was a reason why they named it Genesis. Okay? Because you think, well, Genesis means beginning, but what does the root word of that word is gene. Those, because they know that a fair amount of the book in the beginning was about what? The story begins with genetic corruption, how a fallen angel had corrupted humankind. And that's why they named it that, Genesis. So if you know what ISIS means, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, who they're referring to. Okay? But again, we all need to be studying to show ourselves approved. I can't tell you everything, but you might want to do some research into what that word really, ISIS, and they've been using it in the modern world today and what's going on in the Middle East. But you need to understand what that word really is all about, okay, and what it really means, which goes back to the ancient world. Okay, so, but moving along, I want to go back to the other translation, which is the NASB translation of this. So if we go back to that translation, it says, Kingdom of Heaven is like leaven, which a woman took and hid in 3 pecks of flour. So that footnote A means here, A, it's Greek. So they replaced this word, Greek, phasata, for pecks of flour. Okay? And they've also replaced it with other translations like ephah, measure. Instead of pecks of flour, they use ephah. Okay? But you gotta understand what all they've done is they've hidden what that word really means with all these other, words. They replaced it with like pecks, with flour, ephah, measure. If you look up ephah, that's a whole nother lecture, which I'm not going to get into, but some people have already talked about what the ephah measure means. It's the same thing. Okay, but I want to focus on this one, this particular translation, pecks of flour, and they replaced it with the Greek word sata. So we need to understand what that word means and why it got replaced with pecks of flour. So if we let's go to the blue letter and look this up here. So let's look up that verse again, because I want to show you something. If you go to, let's look up Matthew and see what that means. So that same verse here, now they're giving you in the New Testament, because they hide a lot of stuff in the New Testament. They give you a lot of the Greek words, the lexicon words in the New Testament. You won't see the Hebrew words in the New Testament. In the Old Testament, they give you the Hebrew translation, but in the New Testament, they give you Greek because they hide a lot in their own translation, in their own language, you understand? So let me give you an example. So, do you see the word Greek is sata in that other translation I showed you? That is the actual Greek word sata, right? But here, in their Greek lexicon, they changed the word to satan. Okay? You see how they do a lot of word plays and they change the letters around. They play with the rules, okay, of their language, the Hebrew language, you name it. And they do all this and trick up, it's all to cause confusion so people can't figure all this out. So as you can see what that word means, again, it says, a kind of dry measure, 3 gallons, okay. So you say, oh, okay, it means measure, satan, okay, of Hebrew origin. But it's of Hebrew origin, right? And if you look up the Hebrew word, it says seah, okay. And again, it talks about, a measure of flour, and there's the ephah measure. And see, to really understand what this all means, you have to understand a little bit about Hebrew. This is why I was telling our, in some previous lectures, why it's very important to understand the Aramaic, the Hebrew language of our people, because you'll understand what they have been hiding in the writings of our people when they began to deliberately mistranslate them. So, but here they're saying it's a measure, okay, but that's not the word they're using here in this translation. They're using sata. So that's the word that I want to find out what that means. So let's look that word up. So if you go here and look up, just come out of here, okay, and let's look that word up. So if you go look up that word sata, alright, so I have it already pulled up here, and you look it up in the KJV, and it's just going to pull up from the KJV. Well, they're saying there's no concordance results for that, at least in the KJV. And you probably won't find it in any of these other translations they have here. However, there is a lexicon translation for it. So, it is listed in the lexicon. So, in the lexicon, as you can see, it's transliterated as what? Sata is Satan. Okay, and that's in the Hebrew concordance, 7854, means adversary, right? And then, New Testament, the Greek translation for Satan, again, same word, Satan. All right, and look at the Greek translation number, huh? Interesting, right? So now, I mean, the reason why is because if you add those numbers up, what you get. So anyway, but you see what the actual word means. Now you say to yourself, okay, it means Satan. Okay. So it's referring to genetic corruption in that particular verse. Now, let's find out a little bit more what that word Satan means. So if you look at it in the Hebrew translation, it just tells you that, oh, you know, it's a masculine noun, because we know who Satan is referring to, right? Now, what I want you to focus on here is how it's being spelled here, pronounced, saw, and then you see how that word is spelled, T-A-W-N. Remember that. We're going to come back to that in a minute. But it's just telling you that it means superhand, you know, it's the same thing, adversary. Okay, now, so that's what it's telling you in the Hebrew translation. But if we look at it in the Greek translation, now, I want you to look at how it's being spelled in Greek. See that? T-A-V? Remember what I said? I told you about these people that corrupted our language. They come from a Germanic language, so they intertwine they intertwine the V and the W. Okay? So sometimes it'll be T-A-V or T-A-W. Remember that. We're going to come back. That's why you saw how it was pronounced with a T-A-W, but in Greek, it's being spelled with a V. Okay? Because with them, a V and a W is the same thing, because their dialect originally, these people that are pretending to be our people, you know, known as the, you know, Edomites, the, you know, people living in Israel today, these Jewish people who are not really the descendants of Israel, but, you know, they're occupying our land right now. They are of Germanic, you know, their language is of Germanic Russian origin, so, you know, again, because they really originally, they speak a Germanic dialect. If you know anything about German, the V and the W is interchangeable. You know, they cannot pronounce anything with a W without a V. Okay, people that speak German. Okay, so, but what's interesting here is it tells you a little bit more about what that word means in Greek. So it says, okay, he's an adversary. And he, the worshippers of idols are said to be under his control. Okay. He also says he incites apostasy, causes men to sin. He's the prince of evil spirits. Okay, the inveterate adversary of the Most High. Right. So here's something you have to understand. Well, we're going to get back. We're going to come back to that in a minute. So let's keep looking at what that word means, and remember how it's spelled here in Greek. That E is an S-A-T-A-V. Okay. So it gets very interesting here when you start looking up what it means in Greek. So it says adversary, one who opposes another, prince of evil spirits, right? Okay, so keep going here. And then when you keep you keep coming down here, it says Jesus, the Messiah. Okay, this is found in a German encyclopedia. Jesus the Messiah. Well, that's very curious. So, now, you're probably saying, hey, you know, wait a minute. Now, hold on. Let me show you something. You see how that word is spelled? Okay. Do you see how it's being spelled, right? Let me show you something. So, in Christianity, well, they observe the cross. Okay? let me show you something very interesting here. Well, actually, let's do this. If you enter in the name here, I'll show you, this is what you need to understand. Look that word up here. I'll show you something here. Now it's telling you what that word actually means in Greek. Okay? Okay. Here's the word Nephal. Okay, remember Nephal is Nephilim. Okay, that is the Aramaic pronunciation of the word Nephilim, Nephal. Okay? And it comes up when you enter in the root of the name Satan. Okay? I want to show you something else here. So, I'm trying to find it. We'll come back to that in a minute. But what I want to show you, well, let's just do this here. Okay. So, again, it just tells you that he's an adversary in here. Okay. But here's what you need to understand. You have to look at the way the name is being spelt. Do you see the way his name is being spelt here? Okay. There is a V on the end of his name. So it is being spelt with a V on the end. So T-A-V. Just like how, again, see, they mask it so you don't figure this out. And this is why you need to understand a little bit about Hebrew language, because you see how it's being spelled in Greek with the T-A-V. Now you're saying, well, why is that relative? Well, I'm going to tell you why it's relative. Okay? The reason why is if you go and look up this particular letter, T, it is spelled in the Hebrew, okay? In the Hebrew, it is spelled Ta, okay? T-A-W. Okay, that's what the letter T. And what Ta stands for, it says cross sticks, it says mark, sign, signal, monument. And it's also spelled over here in the modern Hebrew alphabet. How's it spelled? Instead of a T-A-W, like in the ancient Hebrew, it's spelled T-A-V, like a V as in Victor. Now, I think they've corrupted our language, so they probably added this in there, okay? They've added some things in here that in our original, even in our alphabet, our Aramaic alphabet, wasn't there. Like, for example, the T and what it actually stands for. T-A-V, as in V. You know, they're spelling the modern Hebrew with a V, just the way you see it there, and they're spelling it T-A-W, the way his name was pronounced, right? Here in the Hebrew. Look at the way it's being pronounced. I'm going to find it, yeah. S-A-W-T-A-W. Okay? So that's how it's written. They added an N, but that's how it's actually is pronounced. So why is that, you're saying, why is all that relative? Because think about it, what is the representation in Christianity? Representation in Christianity is what? Exactly that, a cross. Okay? So that cross is actually, a lot of people always wonder what that cross really means. That cross is a mark. Okay? It is the representation of Lucifer. That's why they use a cross in Christianity. Okay? It is that is his name. Okay, if you look at it, okay, I'm showing you the way his name is being spelled. Okay, even the way his name is spelled, you see that's how it's spelled. It's been hidden. Okay, so you couldn't figure any of this out, but it even relates back to the cross. And if you do any research about the cross that they use in Christianity, you'll discover that that cross is pre-Christian. Okay, so that cross goes all the way back to Babylon, the Sumerian times. Okay, they use it. You'll find it in a lot of Sumerian and Babylonian architecture. It's also known as they also have it as an 8-pointed star. You'll see it. You'll see it as an X. You'll see it as an 8-pointed star as well. You'll see it as a 5-pointed star. It is the same thing. Okay, and that is the cross. Okay, and that cross also, there's also some history behind that, but we'll talk about it another time. But that is the cross of Christianity that they use, which is essentially, it is the cross of a symbol of Satan. Okay, satanic. And that's what you have to understand. Think about it. Our people never had a cross. Was there a cross in the ancient writings of our people in the original Testament? No, you won't find anything. But there was a mention of a cross. There was mention of a cross in the original writings of our people, but it had nothing to do with, our people. It was a foreign element. It had something to do with the nations and who they were worshiping, and they used that symbol. Okay, because that is the symbol of Lucifer. Okay, it is a symbol of idolatry. It's been used throughout the ancient world. It's pre-Christian, but they also have adopted in Christianity because, again, that's about my video that I covered, nothing new under the sun, that the people in the world today of Christianity are just worshiping, they're just Christianity is another Mystery Babylon religion. They've taken everything from all those Babylonian religions and all those ancient religions, even the Egyptian, and they've carried all those pagan rituals over into Christianity, and they've just masked them today. And that's why, a lot of what you see, there's so many similarities, because all Lucifer has done is remarketed himself. And you have to understand there's dualities that they use. There is dualities even in their worship of Lucifer. That's why in the original Testament, he is known as, in the original Testament, you'll notice that they call him, they talk about light a lot. Okay, well, let's cover that really quick. And this really should help you understand all of this. Let's go to Revelation 12:22, and I also talked about this in one of my videos. You might want to watch that video that I did on Azazel, but I'm just going to cover it right here. So actually, this might be 16. Maybe. Let's see here. We go to Revelation 16. Oh, that's not it. Oh, yeah, let me show you something else really quick. It's also used in, if you look up the word dragon, because dragon is just another name for serpent, Lucifer, it's even spelled the same way. See that T-A-N? Okay, says monster, sea serpent. It's, just another name for dragon, is another name for serpent, which is Lucifer, right? But if you see the way this is spelled, that's a T, okay, that first letter. And then this letter, even though they have, remember, there were no vowel points in the Hebrew or Aramaic, alphabet or language, no vowels, just consonants. So there was no A, so it would have been T-N, right? So that's a T, and if you look up this word, that's not an N. That's a V. So it's the same word, T-A-V. Just showing you, even his name is spelled as serpent the same way. T-A-V. You see that? Tav. Alright, so that's what that cross is representative of. It's representative, a symbol of Lucifer. And like I said, there you have these dualities that they call him Lucifer, the light bearer. The people in Christianity that worship him as Lucifer, and then you have the Satanists that worship the dark side, him as the Prince of Darkness. So there's even dualities even in his his character or his nature that his children are worshiping. And that's why in the New Testament they talk about seeing in great light and all of these things. And they also refer to him. Now this is where it gets really, really strange. Let me show you something here. If you look at Revelation, let's see. That's probably not right. Chapter 22, verse 16. It says, I, Jesus, have sent my angel to testify to you these things for the churches. I am the root and the descendant of David, the bright morning star. So, he says, I am the root and descendant of David, the bright morning star. Jesus is the morning star, okay? Now, why is that strange? Well, let's go to Peter. If you go to 2 Peter, I'm going to show you how this term morning star, what it refers to. And also you can check this out in the video I did on Azazel. But let me just, I'll cover it here. If you go to the second book of Peter, chapter 1, verse 2. Hold on, let me see here. Is that right? That's in chapter 1. Let's take a look in chapter 1. Okay. I've got to find it. Might be chapter 1, verse 2. Sorry. It's maybe chapter 2, verse 1. Is that right? No. Hold on. Let me find it. It's in the first chapter. Alright, sorry guys. Alright, but let me show, alright, let's do this. Let me show you how it's being used. Let's just show you. So if you look it up, okay, and here it is, Peter 1:19. Here we go. So it says, so we have prophetic word made sure, to which you do well to pay attention as to a lamp shining in a dark place. And you'll hear that a lot in the Greek Testament. Until the day dawns and the morning star arises in your hearts. Now that is very, very curious. Now I'm going to show you something here. This is how you know what they have hidden and what that term morning star really means. So you're thinking, okay, this is Peter talking. Well, that's not really Peter who they're saying is saying all this. It's not the Peter who you think it is. Okay, they say that Peter is actually Simon Magus. Magus was just Simon the wizard, the sorcerer. And his writing is not really the Peter, Israelite Peter, who they claim is actually in some of these letters. Or it could be Peter and they've just corrupted them, but I'm going to tell you, Peter did not say this. It wasn't the original Peter, one of our brothers, that said this, because it doesn't make any sense. And I'm going to show you why. But, you know, if you look at some of the translations about when it talks about the morning star here in this particular translation, it's just stranger than fiction, brothers and sisters. So let me just show you something here. Okay, so if we look at, for example, oh, look at this. In the, again, Orthodox Jewish Bible, it talks about, okay, dawn, okay, and star. Okay, they're talking about, the morning star, okay, of brightness. Venus rises. And they say, Venus rises. And then they added this, your hearts, which, you know, is something they probably added. But what's really strange is they say, okay, and in this version it says, and the day star. That's also another name for Lucifer. You'll find in some of the text that says day star. And it's also mentioned here, again, this Venus is mentioned in some of the translations. I'm telling you, man, talking about, you know, the text, you know, these people have really corrupted a lot of the writings of our people, and this Greek testament, this false testament, what they have written in order to worship their father, and their father Lucifer, rather, it's very disturbing. Let me look at this translation. It says, "It is good for you to know, to follow closely what they said, but follow a light lamp shining in a dark place until the day begins, dawns, and the morning star rises." Morning star rises. What are they talking about? Okay, and then it says and then here's that Revelation. They're referring to Revelation 22:16. The planet Venus, as seen before sunrise. The planet Venus. Interesting. So Venus was also a god that was worshipped in Greco-Roman culture, right? So, very, very bizarre, right? So you know who they're referring to in this morning star. Now, if you're not sure of this, you can go check Isaiah chapter 14, and it talks about the story of Lucifer, okay, falling from heaven, and he's also known, and he's called in chapter 14 of Isaiah, morning star. So my question for you is, how can Jesus, if Jesus is who they say he is, how could he be the morning star? Doesn't make any sense if he is who they say he is. Okay, so that is kind of like, should be, I hope all of this is your wake-up call and you understand what I'm talking about here. Oh, so let's look up that verse though, this Peter verse, 2 Peter. I want to show you something here, so hopefully this will bring some clarity with all this to you, because even Peter in the writings is not who they say he is. It's very disturbing, brothers and sisters. So yeah, so let's look up this verse, Peter. So if you look up this same verse 19, it says, okay, until the day dawn and the day star arise. Okay, so if you look at day star, help you understand what he's talking about. Okay, so if you look at the meaning of day star, the day star, oh, check this out. This is the Greek. The day star, it's the Greek concordance number 5459. What is the day star? Phosphorus. Look that up. You know a phosphorus, right? Phosphorus, day star, light bringing, given light. The planet Venus, the morning star, day star. Metaphor for Christ. Okay. So, I think, hey, let's show you how can the morning star, okay, if this is the morning star, let's go to Isaiah. Let's go to Isaiah to show you this, because I don't know how many people are actually reading the scriptures, and covering all of this, but let's show you this. It's around here. It is verse 12, Isaiah chapter 14, verse 12. Here it is. It says, "How you have fallen from heaven, O star of the morning, son of the dawn." Okay, so again, morning star, son of the dawn. Okay, it's all referred to the same thing. Okay, so I'm just trying to help our people understand what that really means. Now, they're referring to Jesus, as this morning star. And even in Revelation, I got to show you all this, because, it's really important to drive this home so people understand all of this. That, what they're teaching, what they're telling you is just, it's just false. Okay, so I've kind of showed you the proof, but let me just show it to you again. It says he's the root, offspring, bright morning star. So if we look at that again in that translation, morning star, Aster. Okay, and this is the Greek translation, Aster. Well, you know what Aster is, right? Masculine noun, because Aster is just another name for Lucifer. You understand? So this is why you hear a lot in the New Testament, light, they talk about light, in the darkness we've seen a great, they say in the beginning of the book of John, they see a great light. That's who they're referring to. Okay? Because they are, they call Lucifer the light bearer. Okay, so they are worshiping him, and they have hidden it under the guise of all of these different words: Aster, Day Star, Morning Star. And again, you can check that video out I did on Azazel Morning Star, because it really talks about a lot of this. But I just want you to understand what the word Jesus really means. And another thing, and again, I'm not going to cover all of this, but if you look, you will also discover that one of the things I want to mention, if you need further proof, go Google the word, and again, because I can't do all the research for you, brothers and sisters, you have to do the research yourself as well. We all should be studying to show ourselves approved by the Most High, our Father in heaven. But let me just break it down. If you go and Google the word Jesus, take out the J, and go look up the J without the the word Jesus without the J, and just Isus. Okay, so that's Jesus, and just take out the J and Google Isus. You'll find out that a little bit more than you could even possibly even imagine what that word means. That he was also, because remember, the word, the root of the word is Zeus. And think about it, what is Jesus in Spanish? How is it pronounced in Spanish? Right? It's the same word. It's Zeus. And also, they inverted it in the Roman times, and they also they worshipped that name Isus as a Celtic false dude. He was also something they in the world of the Celtic world, they also worshipped him as Isus. And also it talked about even in Gaul, which is Great Britain. Okay, that's Rome. Okay, in ancient Rome, how they were using victims, human victims, as sacrifice to this deity Isus. Okay, and they talk about this if you Google that word, and how the victims were sacrificed on a tree. So that's why I was like, I don't know who the son of the human son that they had. They hung a human son on the tree. Okay, and it's mentioned in the book of Acts. He was never crucified on a cross, who they say Jesus is. So why would they lie about that when the book of Acts says that he was hung on a tree? Yeah, it's because there was somebody hung on a tree. I don't know who that was that they hung on a tree, but it wasn't this Jesus character, who is really a spirit son, who is essentially Lucifer. But there was another son, a human son, that during the first century was trying to wake our people up. And they did, he was hung on a tree. We just don't know who it is, but that's why you have these two distinctly different characters. And what's also interesting is, if you notice Jesus, how he was able to drive out demons. Remember, what did it say about I showed you one of the things about Satan, what he can do. He has command over the demons, doesn't he? Right? He has over evil spirits. So that's how Jesus was able to drive out, that story that they were telling you in the Greek Testament, how he was able to drive out evil spirits, is because he was Satan. Okay, this is the character. See, they know his history, and they know him, okay, their father, who they worship, who they call Jesus, who they're telling you is their savior. Okay, so if you are an Israelite, hopefully this, hopefully you get it, and I would encourage you to do your own research. Again, it's in the scriptures. I've already showed you. It's here. Okay, but also look up that word Isus, and then ask yourself, is this Jesus who they say it is, and why does this Jesus look like them, and why is he a spirit, a Nephilim? Okay. And really, did our people in the ancient world, who were they praying to? They were praying to the Most High, our Father in heaven. There was no Jesus character. So how did this Jesus character come along in the Greek Testament? All of a sudden, some people that don't look like us tell our people that, hey, this is the person you're supposed to be listening to, and unfortunately our people have bought into it. Well, it's time to wake up, brothers and sisters. Thanks for watching and tuning in. And may the Most High bless.